Welcome back to Edge of IT. I couldn't be more excited to bring you an extremely special episode for our season 2 finale. Today we've got a roundtable conversation with literally the best, brightest, and some of the funnest minds here at Pellera. Today we're diving into the real state of AI adoption. What's working, what's not, and where are things heading as we move into 2026? We've got a lot to cover, from governance and cybersecurity to infrastructure, costs, and automation. So let's jump in. This is a roundtable conversation with myself and people that I call friends. It's great to have Roy, David, and Darren with us. So, gentlemen, why don't you actually give an introduction of who you are and what you do here at Pellera?
Sure. Roy Bales, I'm an enterprise architect, part of the PTA program previously. They use this kind of like field CTOs, right? So like the overarching umbrella across all of our practice areas to kind of be the glue that binds them in an account.
So good morning. My name is Dave Santeramo. I'm a cybersecurity and risk leader here at Pellera Technologies, and my focus is on helping organizations address risks associated with new and emerging technologies like AI.
My name is Darren Livingston. I'm VP of Engineered Solutions. I have the privilege of leading our accelerated compute and engineered solutions pre-sales SA team for Pellera, and also head up the Pellera Innovation Center, where predominantly we have AI labs running today, along with pretty much any other solutions from all the other vendors. And thanks for having me back. So, Jonathan, looking back on the last year or two, where do you think enterprises and organizations really are at AI maturity? Do you think it's better, worse, the same?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. To be honest, I feel like the reality is kind of stark. Most enterprises are further behind than they actually realize. We've moved past this shiny object phase. Maturity can't be measured by how many pilots that you've got running or if you've installed Copilot. Maturity looks like that you've got AI operationalized and governed, and you are starting to focus on how do you manage those workloads at scale. If you aren't solving for inference costs, model orchestration, and enterprise governance, you aren't early, you're behind. Those who are not ready fall into, I think, 3 different categories. There's organizations that just are trying to pretend like this isn't a thing. They're in denial. They haven't actually started. Leadership thinks that they've got no AI footprint because they don't need it. And they've got 100% ungoverned AI going on in their environment. That's the worst possible place. The next is sort of this pilot purgatory or the frozen middle. Everything's on hold. It's in committee. No, we're getting to it. Organizations are paralyzed by perfection, right? Oh, we got to get the data ready. Wait, our governance framework isn't done yet. The center of excellence is still meeting. And the challenge is that they're being outpaced by competitors who are learning by actually doing. The last group that are behind they've got this illusion of progress. They've got minor initiatives underway. They're doing the work. They're doing the both and type of thing. They've got some Copilot licenses. Maybe they've rolled out their first use case, but they haven't really checked the box of re-architecting any of their business processes, right? Maturity in 2025 is not about having a chatbot or having Copilot. It's working on an AI control plane and understanding and managing that ability to route requests, the right model, manage costs dynamically, and govern agents that take actions, not just chat with you.
That is definitely the case. I see a clear delineation here between what business is doing with AI and what, in particularly in my case, security is doing regarding the controls they have in place. Yeah, you had for years, which got last couple of years, you had this opinion from a security side of just we're not going to allow AI and everything. Now it's the eventuality of, yeah, all right. So now it's there already in the organization. Business has already brought it in. Now we have to build those guardrails. And I think that's what's going forward right now with some of the foundation models and things like that are coming out. But like we have seen before with adoptions or new technologies, the technology And the business use of technology is outpacing security's ability to be able to protect the business.
Yeah, we always have this big surge into new technologies, right? Where everybody just says, "Oh, we're going to use it. It's AI. It's new. It's sexy, and we're gonna jump on it," right? And they do, and everybody jumps on it, and you get all the shadow IT that goes out and gets it early before security has a chance to block those things or do anything, right? So organizations find out really quickly that, oh man, I should really put something in place to control this.
Dave, you're the most secure person on this call, obviously. From the conversations that you're having, I mean, why is governance still the piece that teams really underestimate in terms of the lift? Why is that so challenging?
You look back to cloud 10, 15 years ago, it's a very similar track pattern. It's a new way for business to utilize a piece of technology. And the security side of things are just learning all those aspects at the same time that business is adopting them. So it's very difficult to protect something when you're just in its infancy of learning it. So that's very similar to what cloud has right now, where many years ago, when cloud was adopted, business was running out to the public, to the various what's called public cloud providers, before security was really able to understand what it was, what was there, and how to protect it. Now, what you see is security has those frameworks, has those policies, procedures in order to protect cloud. And there's still a vast amount of risk there. Same thing is going to take place regarding AI. Security is now starting to have frameworks. You have NIST, you have the EU AI Act, you have ISO, you have all these various frameworks that are being developed and everything that are going to help organizational security teams with being able to guide their organization securely into utilizing AI.
And it's layers on layers, right? You look at like from a data perspective, right? We've been talking about going to any organization and ask them about like their data. Do you have a good grasp on what you have? Is it appropriately tagged and organized? Do you know what you have, right? And AI is 100% focused on being able to use that data. So do I have controls on my data? And if I don't, then how can I really have controls on how AI uses that data? Dave, from a risk standpoint, what's changed the most in the last year? What new threats or behaviors are surfacing that leaders still aren't prepared for?
As I was kind of talking about, the concept of no is just not going to work. So many CISOs and CIOs kind of took the position of no, we're just not going to allow AI to be utilized inside of our organization. That's not going to work. It's already there. It's already being utilized. Which are the business units are just going around the security team. But they'd rather beg for forgiveness than ask permission, which is the standard old thing that security teams always deal with. What is most interesting, as we're seeing later on in 25, and you're definitely going to see in 26, is it's coming to light more the adversarial use of AI. So at the same time that business is developing all these tools around using AI, and security is starting to incorporate AI into their tools, the bad guys are doing the exact same thing. They're getting faster. They're actually starting to incorporate AI into what they do. And it's becoming this thing of it's definitely an arms race type of scenario here going on, where you have security trying to incorporate AI into their tools at the same time that they're trying to protect the business that is also accelerating as well. And the bad guys are doing the exact same thing. I mean, you're starting to see more and more. I'll cite what Anthropic actually has come out with the last 2 months in their threat reports about it essentially used to avoid some of the common indicators that HR, which organizations are used to picking up on for job applicants, things like that. So the old way of the old cues that we've all been trained in all these years to pick up, either from a deep fake standpoint or a phishing email standpoint, they're all going away.
I've been thinking about this. It's almost like we need to have a this is like next level multi-factor authentication, right? So like, oh, I get an email from Darren and I'm like, yo, that's weird. And then I pull out my phone and I text him, Darren, did you say this? Is this your email? Right? I need to use a different channel to authenticate that something's legit, right? see something online. It's like, let me Google that and see if that's a real thing first. Right.
I mean, social media isn't always true, Jonathan.
I'm shocked.
I mean, a great use case for AI, right? I mean, look at the photo, like pictures. That saying a picture is worth 1,000 words, that's gone to the wayside because you can make a picture whatever you want.
And even videos and voices. Right.
Yep.
I mean, using AI, I don't need to lose any weight.
Well, the video that I'm sending out to all you guys later after this podcast, requesting $10,000, that will be true, by the way. That will be coming from me. So just kidding. Just kidding.
You laugh, but things like that have been done to companies where, and we're talking millions of dollars in transfers that have been done due to either using a video or using a voice. So the old thing that we were always told to avoid, that you always are trained for, I mean, regarding those text messages for gift cards and stuff like that. Now extrapolate that out to the level of, now we're talking millions and tens of millions of dollars.
It happened to me in the last couple of years, actually, where somebody was impersonating me and wanted to move my salary from one bank account to another bank account. And I do live in Canada. They wanted to transfer my bank account down to somewhere in the Caribbean. It sounded like me. It looked like me.
It's incredibly believable, right? Quality of the emails that are being sent and the way that they're spoofing and the amount of data that they're able to gather and put to use for their efforts. And then there's the other aspect with the models themselves that we're using for AI, right? We don't really know what's in them. We scanned it and it looked great and everything went fine for the first 2 years. And then somebody asked it what color a banana is. And now it's sending all of our personal data to some random site in Siberia, right?
I guess from a security standpoint, to that thing is, many people inside organizations are voluntarily providing this sensitive data. And Roy, you were talking earlier about data, about labeling, about tagging data. Many people inside organizations, because security is behind, are now freely sharing information with various public models in order to be able to write an email better, or in order to be able to do some research. And they don't really know, because the employee education program around AI is just not there.
And it ties back into something Jonathan said earlier too, about how we've got kind of the side by side. They're using it and trying to develop how we use it at the same time. So you give them access to Copilot and they're copy and pasting, or they're, doing whatever, and they're putting data in it. And at the same time, we're trying to build the governance. So, and I see that, right? I can think of several examples right now where I know companies and organizations are going through a governance program, but they're also implementing Copilot at the same time. So the governance isn't in place. I can paste anything I want. There's nothing to stop me. If I want to send all of Jonathan's Social Security and everything out to the world, I can. And the AI will just take it and be happy to use it.
Well, I mean, to me, that problem is exclusive of AI. I've seen in organizations for the last 10 years, is that organizations do not have an understanding of where their data is, the sensitivity of their data. They're still struggling with that through all these years. Now you just piled on top of it the capabilities of AI and what that brings to the table regarding data and regarding the possibility of data leakage. So I think it's just now accelerating it just so much more.
I mean, we've got C-levels that are saying we've got to do AI. We need to move forward on this, right? But I mean, Darren, you say that, they want it, but they don't actually want to modernize their infrastructure to handle it. I mean, from your standpoint, right, what is the biggest infrastructure mismatch that you're seeing? What are the big challenges in managing these compute workloads?
GPUs makes up a very small portion. So we've seen so many clients run out buying GPUs, not knowing what they're going to do with them. They don't understand their data behind it. They have no framework for any kind of, we'll say, data governance. I mean, that word is a very large and broad word, but, around the data, what they're going to do, what data is going to feed these models, what's their governancing model, their security. They end up kind of putting the cart before the horse in many ways, because they buy all this crazy amount of compute. Then they realize when they're going to have to feed the quote unquote monster, then they're trying to figure out how to feed, what type of data, but you've already spent the money on GPUs and servers. Now you have made a commitment into that AI world, so to speak, right? That's the single biggest challenge I'm seeing now is everything around data and feeding into it and the type of data sources and governances.
I think they struggle with the whole, I spent $100 million to do AI because I thought it was going to make me an extra $100 million. And what really happened was I spent $100 million and I just lost money. And I don't have a product that's doing anything, much less making me extra money.
Well, or the ROI. The ROI.
Yeah, the
Right.
ROI. I mean, for years, when I would talk to C-level executives, it was always cloud first or cloud smart. Now I'm hearing AI first and AI smart
We've got to do
as
agents. Yeah, we've got to move forward
yes,
quick.
as that of where they're going, and that's the terminology they're using when presenting their projects to their boards and everything else.
So kind of want to keep the conversation going around why does AI fail? What effort, like what is failing? What works, right? I mean, the landscape, the entire industry, the landscape models and infrastructure is changing so rapidly and pretty chaotic, right? Let's talk about where AI has been stumbling, what separates organizations that are getting it, right? I mean, research, we've all seen the Gartner reports where 85+% of AI projects are failing. They're not even out of the POC.
From my standpoint, Gen AI initiatives don't fall flat because tech isn't ready, right? They fail because we underestimate the behavioral friction, right? We're asking people to move from clicking buttons to articulating the intent of what they want to do. This is a psychological shift in many ways. And this is difficult for a couple reasons. There's a lot of value to this technology, and there's a lot of things that it can do and accelerate. And executives are looking at it, as you mentioned, Darren, as ROI, like in the form of, well, how many hours did we save? How many FTEs can we reduce? Well, that's not really the right way to think about it. In many ways, it's about what more can we get done? How much more work can we get done, as opposed to how much work can we stop doing, right? You minimize some of the more redundant things and you maximize the valuable work that people start doing. I think the other piece of change management that comes in here is that employees are hesitant to rely on a system that's probabilistic, right? Getting people to use the tech and trust it. Executives oftentimes aren't making that investment of bringing people up to speed, giving them space to understand and get comfortable with it. It's more of do this thing, don't do that thing, and people back away from it. And they want to do things the way they did before. So there's a trust gap.
It's the same problem kind of on repeat is how do we bring the people along in a way that they'll understand that they can use it and it's effective for them. And then going back to something else you were talking about, it's what business problems are we solving versus, hey, it's cool and let's do it and we don't know what we're doing with it. I think a lot of organizations try to boil the ocean with their AI. So they go out and they do this big, we're going to transform and we're going to do everything with AI and we're going to make it this big as a service model, when what they really should be doing is solve a problem and then move on to the next one.
I mean, is AI right now in the position of overpromising and underdelivering regarding what an organization when an organization says we're going to go out, we're going to integrate AI into our environment, but to your point, Roy, about it comes down to the people who are actually going to be using those solutions and everything as those applications are modernized to incorporate in which AI technology into them. Is that the gap? Is that the success gap where the infrastructure is there, to Darren's point, the infrastructure is there, the GPUs are there, the capabilities there, but the end users are like, well, how has this made my job or my life easier?
Well, I think, in many ways, it does make people's lives easier, right? A developer can write code 30 to 70% faster, but that now gives them time to invest into writing more secure code, creating better documentation, and also writing more code, right? There's this thing called the backlog. and people can now get to it, right? There's more value coming out of it, but you've got people looking at it from a different angle of like, well, don't do those things. I feel like things fall flat because we focus on subtraction, cutting hours, as opposed to multiplication and amplifying capabilities.
Oh, yeah. When an organization invests tens of millions of dollars, they're going to want, to Darren's point, a return on that investment. And that is that productivity piece. And that sometimes is where organizations have trouble quantifying that, is what are they seeing regarding the improvement in efficiency, the improvement in code, the improvement overall inside the business? What is the business value? And I think that goes, Darren, to what your point about, which what Gartner's number was. I think it was 84%, I believe you said, right? Is very similar to 10 to 15 years ago of organizations that went out to cloud. And the number of organizations that just were either overspending in the cloud or were not getting the value that they felt they were expecting to get by moving their organization out to a public cloud.
What I see is many organizations, they'll make the announcement, we have AI, yippee, but they don't go to the next step where they educate their end users on how to use it properly. And the other thing is they bring it in and there's lots of carrying and feeding, right? Like there's examples where sales organizations have brought in prompt AI solution to help their account managers, and they bring it in, the data's trained, they get going, and nobody's really validated that the output's actually 100% accurate. They don't keep it updated. And the worst is they're not teaching their own staff how to really pull the most benefit out of it. The organizations, in my opinion, that are educating their staff that are having the most success. Now, is there a measurable ROI there? There's lots of debate there, right? So,
I mean, kind of following up on what we were talking about from a data center perspective, serving and scaling models is expensive. How are the leaders, are they being realistic in their budgeting and all that for what AI truly costs inside of an organization, from everything that's involved with actually bringing AI in, from electricity to coolant to data set, all those pieces?
my experience so far, very few. I think a lot of times we've worked with a lot of organizations, both large, small, and medium, where they want to bring in, okay, we got this great idea. We're going to do this. Power cooling, always overlooked. Now you're asking facility people, hey, can I have 50, 60 kilowatts? And I need liquid cooling. And they're like, no, we can't even get down there. And that's just on the server side. Then there's the networking componentry. Then there's a storage element of it. There's a lot of thought that, oh, this is just like a traditional application. Insert here, Microsoft, Oracle, whatever, right? There's a lot of elements that are being missed. Let's talk about security, securing these environments, the data governance. Again, I go back to the data governance, migration of data, the flow of data into these things. I mean, there's so many factors to consider.
I think you hit the nail on the head on one of the things that people forget about, right? So they concentrate on power and all those other things and the number of GPUs and all that, but they forget about the underlying network infrastructure. Here is that one of the common complaints you hear about people who use various public products for Gen AI is having to wait for a reply. Part of that issue is the underlying network inside of organizations and, of course, across the internet is not really designed for the speed in which people are expecting Gen AI to be able to provide them answers, right? There is that lag still there now. I mean, we see it regularly now with voice and video. Well, now just add on top of that. I mean, just add on top of that the lag in getting a response from AI. And think about that response. So from a security world, and I have AI incorporated into my security tools that I'm using in my SOC. So I ask a priority question for something that I'm seeing to my AI assistant, and all of a sudden I got to sit there and wait on the network that might be doing a backup somewhere in order to get a reply to this mission critical thing. That also conceptually needs to be thought of inside of organizations.
From a budgeting perspective / implementation perspective, do we feel like executives have properly budgeted for this in terms of how much they're going to have to spend / how much infrastructure they're going to need? Or training that they're going to have to do to adapt?
Not at all. We live in a token based world now, right? And everything's about the token. It's not the dollar anymore. It's like how many tokens are you going to spend this month, or how many tokens are you using when you do this thing? And a lot of that I think ties into also the type of models that we're using. And if I back up a little bit into the stack, do I need a 200 billion parameter model if all I'm trying to do is have it answer a very specialized, simple question for a single task? And I don't, right? So I don't necessarily need to go out and spend $200 million on infrastructure if all I'm trying to do is get it to tell me whether or not my servers are running, and then maybe go and look at a log and tell me what it says as far as the problem, right?
You don't need to train a model to tell you when your vacation is.
Right. Well, and that's a great point too, training versus inference, right? I don't think a lot of organizations understand the difference and know which one they need, right? Everybody looks and says, oh man, training models takes this many GPUs. And so they go out and they buy them. And then they realize, like, I didn't actually need to train a whole model from scratch. I just really mostly needed to do inference. And so I bought $100 million and I really needed 10, right? And I think that was another metric we saw recently, was that we were 10x overspending on AI. Organizations who really needed the capabilities of a 6 billion parameter model that was finely tuned bought for that 100 billion parameter model that they don't need.
We've worked with so many organizations that are talking to clients and whatnot, where they went out and spent, 10x what they really needed. I mean, how many organizations really need to be buying 32 GPUs or even 16 GPUs, right? Where they could have gotten away with a single server, one or two servers, less than the complexity. It helps manage it, manages the environment, security, so on and so forth. I just think that from that element, I think organizations are starting to learn that no, we don't have to spend that much. I wanted to touch on your comment, Jonathan, about executives. I think the executives that are just saying, I shall demand AI, are getting stung really badly. The organizations that are actually trying to solve a business challenge with AI, with an actual business outcome, they're not getting burned because they know what they're trying to buy. It's like you're trying to buy something for your home, and you go to a contractor. The contractor, you want the best of everything. Okay, I'll give it to you. And really, do you really need that? You know what I mean? So I think too, what we're starting to see too with in the AI space, I mean, is emerging technologies, different approaches to solve the same challenges with less.
I mean, typically when I'm talking to C-level executives about, there's a wide landscape of AI tools that are out there. I mean, just hundreds of them. But I usually advise them to start with two things. Start with the users, how they are going to utilize AI. So from an identity standpoint, start on that. Start there. Start what they can access, right? Protect, focus on then the data in which they have access to, that data and how it's going to be protected if it is incorporated into your AI model, how to understand the underlying infrastructure for the end user from a security standpoint. 90% of those individuals have no idea what is there regarding infrastructure, storage, servers, all that. So I always advise people the best place to start, best place to invest in order to bring AI into your organization is users and the data they access. If you focus there, you're going to reduce your risk significantly.
You look at the use case first. The use case will dictate the data you need. And from there, you can draw a line from the use case to the users. And then you can align in the middle on what is the right level of access, what is the right level of governance, and is it already in place properly? And if not, let's fix it.
Right. Well, I think it goes back to where we were going earlier. The use case, right? Are the use cases for AI coming into organizations, are they realistic?
AI is magical, but it's not magic, right? It takes work on a lot of different fronts. And just because it looks great doesn't mean it's going to perform at the specification that's required for a specific use case.
No, it's exactly it. It's is a AI is going to is no matter what right now, it is going to be incorporated across the business landscape. There's no doubt about it. It's going to across everything that we see from an IT and a business standpoint. It's going to be there. The difference is the realistic goals that organizations set for themselves, right? You're not going to incorporate AI everywhere. I kind of said it earlier, AI smart. Where does it make sense? Where am I actually going to see value in it?
Exactly. Hey, so let's transition here because, and I want your feedback on this. Looking ahead, 2026, big year coming, right? AI is evolving and changing, and architectures and automation. I mean, it's only going to keep moving faster and faster and faster, right? What do you guys see as being the biggest forces shaping AI adoption in the coming 2 years? Like, what are really organizations really going to integrate? Is it agentic AI? Is it what do you guys think?
I think what Dave was saying is right. It comes down to the use cases. And I think finding those use cases it's going to start becoming easier. As more and more organizations are playing with this, more and more productive use cases are going to get out there. And that's going to be increase the acceleration of adoption. I think that agents are becoming more and more mature, and implementing them is become more and more obvious. And that's going to be a significant uptick. And I think that's going to Roy's point, that's going to really drive the question to internal IT of how do we properly mint all the tokens we need, right? It's really going to push the issue of what's our risk here? Are we really mitigating this in the right ways that we need to?
Well, I mean, still inside most organizations nowadays, you have where you have the business side of things that are coming up with these ideas, these use cases, which got Jonathan to your point, and they're running forward and they're getting budget and everything for it. And then it's, oh, by the way, let's ask the security team what they think. When it's already, in a football sense, it's already on the 5-yard line. And so you're basically putting security in the position of, okay, we're going to have to figure out what they want to do and how to protect them and which will protect the company's data. But this is going forward no matter what. I think we have those frameworks are starting to be developed right now that I was talking about. You're going to start to see more and more regulations coming out. They're going to help to guide organizations. I mean, MITRE has their Atlas framework that's there now. So organizations are going to start to be able to have a path forward. Right now, security wise, most organizations are kind of figuring out as they're going. They don't have a guide. Well, they're going to have guides here in 2026 that are going to be more mature. NIST, the EU AI Act, a number of states are coming out with their various regulations and things like that. So I think it's going to be the incorporate. I'm starting to notice that some of the AI governance tools are starting to come out now. So there are those tools to help you in guiding things. But there's, as always, security is a step or two behind where businesses are going.
In the coming years, like in this year, you will see from a hardware infrastructure conversation, I think you will see emerging technologies come out that simplify a lot of this from procuring that the infrastructure, the right sizing of it, the approach. We're seeing it at the software level, right, from the architecture with solutions out there that are finding ways to compress these models around KV cache, so on and so forth, right? I see a lot of that evolving. I think put a business hat on for a second, it's like everybody wants to know, if I'm buying this, what am I getting out of it, right? It's not, I'm getting a really cool server. I want to know, what am I getting for this, right? I think I'm really hoping, and I fully expect that is going to evolve too, right? You buy this is your outcome. This is the expectation, right? So that's kind of what my thoughts are on it.
Organizations are used to buying a widget and saying, this is going to do this job. This technology is changing that paradigm that you need a widget for everything. This is this is not that, right? This ties all the widgets together and creates a connection that is more powerful than we fully wrapped our heads around, is what I'll say, right? And so it's a it's it it's a significant paradigm shift that everybody's trying to figure out at the moment. And it's happening real fast. You think back to adopting technology, vehicles, cell phones, all changed major shapes of our economy and the way we do things, computers as well, obviously. And it just took a long time for those things those technologies to mature, adoption to happen. This is happening at 2 to 10 times the pace of those other technologies.
From an adoption perspective, right? You talked about governance, you talked about like the hardware platform. And if you follow like adoption of any technology or anything that we've had, right? Cars, et cetera, standardization is really where those technologies really truly accelerate, right? When you accelerate on a security model and you have some frameworks, standardize on a model and you have governance frameworks. And when you standardize on what my platform looks like when I build it from a hardware and infrastructure perspective, switching and networking, and then from a tools perspective, when you start standardizing on tools, and I think that's what we're going to really start seeing, right? Is most AI is going to be containerized going forward. And the stacks that they're using and are being developed, right? Meta came out with Llama Stack and Red Hat took Llama Stack and said, hey, we're going to make that kind of a core component of OpenShift AI. And so they built their stack and IBM took and layered onto that and said, yeah, now we're going to take and we're going to layer onto that. And so as you see like these choices get made, right? And we can liken it to the cloud. There's tons of clouds. Why does most people go to Azure and AWS and GCP, right? Because they became the clearly defined winners. And I think we're starting to see clearly defined winners in the AI space. And I think that's going to shape AI probably more than anything over the next few years is when I go to build this, like I've got a standardized set of tools. I'm not picking some random thing because it sounded cool or it's whatever. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of new and innovative stuff that's still coming out, but I'm starting with this stack and this hardware in this configuration, and I have this governance model. And now everybody's speaking the same language, everybody's working on the same platform. And I think that's when you're really going to see an acceleration from a business process or business outcomes perspective.
I think we can honestly say that this conversation we've been having, it all starts with the data, though. Knowing your
It's
data
supposed to be an AI conversation. It's a data conversation, right?
and knowing it's a fundamental thing of knowing where your data is, what your data is, what's in your data, if it's sensitive and things like that, and controlling your data. I think those are the fundamental things, no matter what else. Those are the fundamental things in 2026. If you're a C-level executive that you can work on, I think that's a great place to start.
Gartner predicts that percent of the data leakage next year will come from Gen AI use. You know, what guardrails or controls need to mature the fastest in order to protect organizations and businesses?
I think we were just talking about that. Really, knowing where your data is, how it is being accessed, what is in your data, where your data is organizationally, that's the critical piece. I mean, there's an old adage inside security is you have to know it in order to be able to defend it. And most organizations today that I've seen, they don't know where their data is. They don't know where their data is. They don't know the sensitivity of that data. And that is now going to accelerate, to Jonathan, your point. That's going to accelerate now as all that data is now going to be incorporated into AI models. Is you're going to have that.
All the data is going to be incorporated into automation and agentic workflows, right? That is going to be the bread and butter of what is next in this crazy revolution that we're in the middle of. And to your point, Roy, data leakage is going to be an issue. It's going to come around the guardrails. It's going to be governance. We're going to need to find new DLP tools or maybe DIP tools, right? Data injection protection, right? I mean, never before have we seen where data is a threat vector, right? Usually we accept data that comes into our organizations with little to no or with limited controls around it. We control how things leave, we control how we store things and provide access to things, but there hasn't been a big focus on what are we letting in from a data perspective. And that's going to be a new point of, I think, a new emergent area. When I think about this revolution of automation that is going to happen, are we ready for this? I mean, yes, and also no. Every middle line manager knows what can be automated. Every bottom level employee knows what would make their lives easier and better. But data isn't in the right place necessarily, or if it's there, it's not governed right. And if you've got the tools to go ahead and automate it, we don't have the infrastructure to support it in the ways that people are doing things right now. Right. So there's going to be a significant evolution that's going to happen in the next year.
So, Jonathan, does that boil down to what we were talking about earlier about the business use case and the realistic business use case about, from an autonomous standpoint, from an AI standpoint, and things like that, about what is realistic for an organization, what is going to provide that value? Is that something in 26 that organizations should really take a serious look at?
Yes. Yes, and also no. With one hand, I think you're pointing at some of those really big use cases of where AI should or should not be considered. I think the other hand is pointing to these low level use cases that we know we can solve, and it's low hanging fruit to solve these automation problems. And I think that we're ready culturally to make those changes. But from a technology compute standpoint and a governance standpoint, we're not ready to do that yet, right? To Roy's point, you're going to start minting tokens, and it's going to be you're going to be minting them with something that's too expensive to cover the cost of the advantages of the automation. And it's going to come down to figuring out what's the right way for us to manage that and be able to mint those tokens, right? Everybody's talking about the AI factory because factories produce tokens. And I do think that's absolutely going to be critical to figure out, putting around the proper governance on it, the proper cost and observability and safety rails. Gentlemen, it's been an absolutely phenomenal conversation. Before we sign off, what's one thing that you think leaders need to stop doing in this new year? And what's one thing that they really need to start doing?
Just don't spend money on hardware without a use case. If you're buying something or thinking of going down this path, have a use case. Figure out, see what some of the application owners need. If it's IT buying, align yourself with the stakeholders in these other businesses, the application owners, the business department. Partner, understand you're not buying a piece of hardware. There's an outcome to this. I think that if anything this year, try figure out some use cases, understanding before going down the path, and take into consideration the security, networking, all of that. It's just not buy something to do. There's a lot more involved with this, and go in it with a little bit more educating yourself, asking questions.
Oh, no. I mean, from a security standpoint, I think security leaders need to realize that AI is already in their organization. So stop operating under the premise that them saying no to AI is stopping AI inside their organizations. It's already there. I mean, it's already there. So operate under the premise that AI is already being utilized by your workforce, by your employees and everything. Take the next step of looking at the fundamentals in 2026 that you should be looking at. And as I stated earlier, start with the data, right? That is the critical piece, right? Is the data, knowing where your data is, what's in that data, sensitivity of that data, and then start to incorporate those frameworks that I discussed earlier from NIST and everything else into understanding your true risk when it comes to AI, and not something that they're seeing on some what's called news element or something like that that's designed to scare them. Look at it realistically.
I think I'd really love to see organizations start taking a more fit for purpose approach. Make sure you understand the problem you're trying to solve before you go start trying to shove a bunch of products and projects in there to solve a problem that you may not completely understand. The cloud is not necessarily the right place because it's the quickest or the easiest. I don't need to run into the cloud and say, oh, I'm just going to go use the cloud for AI because it's quick and easy. Because then we see them come into like that very tokenized economy. Like every question we have and they don't grasp it when we start talking about what we can do on-prem is, but how many tokens does this cost? Or like, what's our capacity, or how do we scale that? And it's, well, no, I mean, as long as you've got compute capacity, you can use as many tokens as you want, right? On-prem. It's not the same in the cloud. So I'd love for companies to stop just saying, I'll just put it in the cloud and do it, and start actually understanding the use case and make sure it's fit for purpose on where we put it and what stack we use and how we approach that. I'd love to see them take kind of a microservices approach to this, right? So if I understand my business holistically and that's required, but I don't have to fix it all at once. I can fix one business process. And if I do that in kind of a microservices way, I fix this business process, and now it's easy for me to chain that to the next business process. So I would love to see kind of that. Let's do one thing really well with the big picture in mind, and then let's continue to grow as we learn.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, so much. It's been a great pleasure. That is a wrap on Edge of IT Season 2. Thank you so much for joining us, not just today, but throughout the season. We really hope these conversations help you shape a smarter, safer, and more intentional AI strategy as you head into the new year. We'll be back soon with more Edge of IT. Stay up to date by subscribing on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen, and let us know what topics you'd love us to tackle next.